Okay, so yeah, I just want to tell you guys though how I feel about this episode. So we'll go ahead and jump in. Episode 3 with Jean Marie Thrower. Welcome, Jean.
Woo!
I just want to, I pulled up a little something special to let you guys know how I feel about having our first guest on the podcast. So, Jean, welcome. That's my cheesy side. I know everyone likes it.
That's okay, girl.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and introduce our first guest. So this is Lisa Kay, recording live with Jen Conkey.
Hey,
and we have our first guest, Jean Marie Thrower, on the podcast. So I'm going to give a little intro to Jean, and then we'll go ahead and kick it off. So Jean has been a crusader in the automotive industry. She has grown a business in a male-dominated world over the past decade. And she quickly learned how to stand in her power, speak her truth, and grow her dynamic business. She's bold, inclusive, raw, love-centered, and a powerhouse of knowledge. She's highly respected in the industry and is well known for wisdom around global supply chain success and navigating the paradigm shift that is actively happening and evolving today. Paired with traversing the rocky terrain of a woman in automotive, her spiritual and personal journey prepared her for this trek. So we're going to go ahead and kick off to hear how Jean is living her dream as a result of doing the spiritual work, which has resulted in her harmony, work-life harmony today. So yeah, with that, Jean, we'll go ahead and kick it over to you. So anything that you would want to share that I didn't include in your intro, just to give us a little bit of background about you, and we'll go from there.
Well, thank you, Lisa, for the introduction. I guess I first want to say that when I, just going straight into, I guess, my history and at this point, when I first started, I kind of like went back and I reflected a little bit, and I've done this over the years a few times, but when I first started, I was more like kind of goofy. I was like, oh, I'm a young girl, and just trying to, and I worked in a male-dominated environment, the automotive industry, and also in the Army. And so I was just trying to kind of be more like bouncy and friendly, and if I'm friendly enough, they'll like me. And I really realized after a few years that people did like me, but I wasn't really effective in business. And because I wasn't effective in business, I really wasn't happy, because I felt that I was kind of tied, my professional or who I was kind of tied to who I was in business. I think we all have that, that feeling, that relationship, or your personality is somewhat tied to your work success. So then kind of fast forward, I realized and I was always kind of intuitive and have an old soul, believe in past lives. And I did feel in this life that I was meant for something better, but in my 20s, I really didn't know what that was. So I started to do some meditating and really started kind of reconnecting with my old soul, my past self, and trying to find out who really I am and how I can impact the world. Not just to be more financially successful, but really to have my own happiness and to have and share happiness with those people around me.
Hey, Jean, real quick. So how did you even get it, know that meditation was a thing at such a young age?
Well, luckily, my family is into more of the Eastern philosophy. Even though I was raised also in traditional religion, I would say I was more I didn't really connect with traditional religion as much as I did with connecting with the chakras and the inner energy. And just finding balance, bringing in white light, those types of things.
I can totally relate to what you said, though. In my past, I was not able to connect to the traditional, conventional religion. And I was probably 24 when somebody introduced me to Buddhism first. And then I just started exploring a bunch of stuff. And yeah, I can completely relate to that. You find a little bit more balance, it felt like to me. On that side.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I was just kind of asking because for someone who's maybe younger, they may be like, where do I even start? So I was just kind of curious if there were any hints. But it really felt like, just reading and exploring.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of different information out there, and a lot of it's interesting. I think one key book, and I know that we've talked about this before, Lisa, that really changed my perspective, like right around my 30s, was The Four Agreements by Ruiz. And
But we have that like literally somewhere. I was just reading it.
Yeah. So, and I read that. It's a small book. It's really easy to read. The first beginning part of it with the Toltec Indians is a little bit kind of hard to follow if you're not really already in a good place. But if you even just read just the Four Agreements, that's what really opened up my mind to acceptance of other people. Like, I loved all people, but it was like, even if somebody didn't like me, then I was like, well, I'm going to fight back. And when I read the Four Agreements and I really embraced it, it took me I had to read it a few times. Then I was like, it's okay if somebody doesn't like me. I'm not going to let it hold me back. And if they don't like me, I'm fine with that, but I'm just going to try to move away from their aura. Or, there's people that want to maybe even try to take your time and energy. So I think going back to business and bliss and how to achieve that, in my 20s, when I started to try to do better in business and be more serious and more data driven and in a male dominated world and trying to, not just be like the goofy little girl, I went through a transition where I also, for a few years, I blamed other people for my lack of success. So I would blame, not that I'm a vindictive person, but I think I would be like, well, I'm not getting a promotion because they did something negative to me, or they, answered the question right in the meeting and took my, I gave them the right answer, but they answered it. This kind of stuff went on for also off and on for a few years. And I would say early 30s, after the Four Agreements and trying to go introspective and do more meditation, I was able to really say, what, it's not about other people. It's about me. It's about I'm sitting here trying to blame somebody for why I didn't get a promotion, or why I'm not doing as good at work, or why maybe I'm not as liked in certain circles at work or in business. And it comes down to, it's all about how I interact with people and what I'm doing. So I really kind of flipped the script back onto myself. I did that. I started taking ownership for my, really, instead of trying to say, it's everybody else's fault that I'm not happy. It really comes down to, I think it's the person's responsibility to find their happiness.
I so love that. That came up actually in our first episode where we talked about no one else is responsible for your happiness except you. And if you're not happy, then you need to do something about it. And that goes back to exactly what Don Miguel Ruiz talks about, which says, don't take anything personally, because nothing anyone says or does has anything to do with you. It has everything to do with them. So I'm noticing a theme, and I like it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think when I made that shift, I was really, and again, it still happens. I work with people all around the world, and there's so many different types of personalities, but I really feel like in the last 12, 15 years, I've mastered being able to, I'm talking like some real tense situations and personalities, and I'm able to diffuse them. People often come to me in crises, and when there's a major, strategic issue going on, they come to me and ask me to facilitate, purely because I think they realize that I'm going to be able to, process everybody's feelings. And somehow I'm kind of like a bridge too. When people get around me that are stressed out, when they get around me, they actually start to calm down.
So Jane, you said about being able to diffuse a situation, or folks asking you to come help meditate. What tactics
mediate? Yeah.
Do? Like, how do you do it? Are you aware of how you do it? I'm sure you are.
Yeah. I think it fundamentally at a DNA level, I think I have a vibration in my soul that subconsciously, and again, I'm no expert, but I think I have this almost like this calming vibration that kind of vibrates outside and goes into, people are like, I can't believe this guy. And as soon as they get within like 5 feet of me, I'm like, they kind of like.
I got to ask,
yeah.
Are you able to turn that on when you notice that it's a situation? Do you feel something like switch inside of you, and that's
good question,
put out, or is that just how you are?
Yeah, I will tell you, I do. If it's a really tense situation, I do feel a kind of like my body almost kind of starts humming.
Yeah.
You know, I can hear it inside, but nobody else can. But there's almost like, okay, it's sending out like a message of calming to those around me. And the other thing is I think listening. So when people start getting tense, I'm like, okay, I'm able to kind of be that voice of reason, calm people down. And again, I mean, I don't want you guys to think I'm in these super stressful situations all the time, but they can happen in the automotive industry, especially when you're dealing with global platforms. So I do think that that's true. And I'm able to bring these
within our family.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. And also in family type situations as well.
Yeah.
So that's been an interesting journey. And I think even just I'm going through another transition now. I'm 47 and been very successful at my business. And even now I feel another shift and change coming. And, there's people and companies that I have in my life that I've started to kind of let go of or to cut loose or figure out a way to kind of separate myself from them. And that's a whole nother level of taking a leap of faith, if you want to call it that, because you're used to, having all these things going on, and then all of a sudden now you're trying to let them go. So that's but it's a transition for me. I'm going through another life about every 10 to 15 years. I feel like I've had a major shift in my.
That makes sense. Now, if I could ask you another question, when you just said you feel a shift coming on, so that tells me that you're a feeler. You probably have like a kinesthetic energy that's how you kind of internally represent things. So if you feel it coming, what is it like? Is it your interactions with some of these people that are just making you feel bogged down? Are they sucking your energy? Or I don't want to get too personal, but
yeah, no question, because that's the whole point of hopefully us doing this podcast, is to help create awareness with people. Like, tell us more about that. How are you committing?
If I go back and reflect on when this has happened to me throughout my life, it's like, no matter what, it's almost like the writing and signs are on the wall. When you touch something and it doesn't turn to gold, when, you can't seem to make, no matter what you do, you can't seem to make anybody happy on a certain team or in a certain situation. People that you're dealing with, no, you don't do anything at all, and they're like trying to come back and be negative to you. That's a sign, a universal sign and an energy sign that you're not in the right place.
Yeah.
So
that's another point. That's another point of the show. We're trying to find out, because a lot of the folks that I've spoke with that have this ability that you're saying that you have, which is really cool, being super intuitive, and I have some of it too. I don't think I have it at the level that you do, which is, you're remarkable. I think
you never know.
Some folks, the reason why I asked you that question on, do you make that conscious decision to send out that vibration, is some of the folks that I talk to, it's not like something they're aware of until after the fact. And it sounds like you're more advanced and you are pretty methodical about, okay, so here's the situation and this is how I'm going to approach it. And you can move from there. And being able to recognize the signs of what you're explaining is huge. And that's part of what we're trying to do with the podcast, is look at the signs. What is the universe?
Yeah. I think the self-awareness, especially with the younger generations that are coming up, I think they're even more. I think it's, I think like I said, I'm 47, but I think even the people in their 30s and 20s, if they are aware of this, listening to a podcast like this, and they're like, they know they have a capability to make the world better, to bring calm and peace, to make, to have a better life for themselves or their families, then they can do it. And I think that the people being born now even have this capability, even probably even more naturally than somebody like myself, because I was born in 72, and I feel like what my initial feeling is to fight against it, because I'm like, I don't want to change. That's my initial, like, what do you call it? 1980s, mentality or whatever. Like, I don't want to change.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable. I just want to stay the same. And I'm like, why can't I stay the same? But I'm looking at all the signs, and it's telling me there's people and businesses that I need to move away from. And I will continue to have strife and knocking heads and not a positive feeling if I continue to stay. It's almost like swimming upstream. So
I'm so glad you said that, because I'm exactly thinking of that. So Abraham Hicks, they talk a ton about this concept of swimming upstream. And that when you actually release and go with the flow and move toward joy, which is what it feels like when you're going with the flow of the river, then that's when you experience bliss, and that's when you experience all the positive things. And so that's exactly a great summary of what you're saying, because if you feel like you talked about, like if you feel, like you can't, what you're touching isn't turning to gold, all that, I think it's that, like, if I'm kind of trying to get a synopsis here for our listeners, but it's really like making time to tune into yourself every day, check in with yourself, and be aware, does what I'm doing right now bring me joy? And if you make joy your compass, if joy is your compass every moment of every day, and you check in, does this bring me joy? Does this job bring me joy? Does this relationship bring me joy? Does, this class I'm in, this major I'm pursuing, does this career path, whatever it may be, does that, if joy is my compass, then you can never be lost.
Yeah.
Right?
I think there's always growing points in our lives. There's growing points where it's like, is shopping right now bringing me joy? And you're like, well, not right now because something else is. I think that's also a little bit of how you grow, because you want to, sometimes strife and some things happening in your life that's how you kind of are molded and formed and forged, also. So I look back on all the I gotta say negative stuff, things that have happened that have been challenges for me. And I'm like, the way I view it is, thank goodness I had those. More people need to be thankful, even for the obstacles or challenges in life. That's where they're missing the bigger picture is embrace that. Oh man, I lost my job. I got fired. You know what? Instead of being bitter, say, I'm glad I got fired, because maybe I need to learn something about myself here through this pain, and maybe I can reinvent myself. So it's almost like turn it into a better situation. I think that's a piece also that's missing out there across the board with people, is something bad happens and they automatically are taking it as a negative, and we need to turn it into a good positive.
I think you just hit on something that brought a thought to my mind. And the difference is what you're explaining about, there's people in your life right now that you feel like you need to move away from because there's a lot of strife. To me, there's a difference between adversity that builds you and through repetition you grow, and strife. I call that drama. So adversity versus drama has always been my thing. I'm going to go, if I will face adversity and I will go through it and I will fail and I will learn and I will get back up and I will go again. But the drama piece is like, we already have enough adversity. We need to go through it with the drama, right? So I would move away from the drama and move towards adversity to keep growing. And I think that's might be what you're saying, but I'm not sure, but that's what I think.
You have to know when it's time to go.
Yeah.
I think it's okay to stay sometimes in a situation when you're like, okay, I'm not ready to let go of this person yet, or I'm not ready to let go of this deal or this relationship, because there's still something, even though it's not positive, there's still something I need to learn from this. There's something I need to experience or absorb from the experience. So that's okay, but you just have to know when. Like, I'm hitting the point where for the last, I would say 14 months, I've been swimming upstream more and more. And I'll go with the current for a second. Now I'm like, nope, I got to go. And I keep going back, but I'm through a seasonal change. I'm going through, everything has a season. And I've almost stayed a little bit longer in it. Just felt like I needed to learn something from it. Like, I have, a company that we're in disagreement about. And I was like, I could just bail, or I could stay a little bit longer and learn what else could I have done differently to be better. I don't want this to happen again.
Root cause.
Staying in it longer. So it's okay too to stay longer. You just have to know when it's time for you holistically to really go.
Yeah.
And the cool part is
everything, right? Relationships too.
It goes for, it's all
the
interconnected.
cool thing is, and I firmly believe this, there also is no wrong decision, right? So, I mean, there's no wrong path. There's just a different path. So whether you stay too long, I said on our first podcast, like I stayed in corporate America about 5 years too long. Maybe yes, maybe no, but to your point, I mean, there were a lot of things that I learned through that rocky 5 years, right? And that was, when I met my husband, when I had my kids, I mean, there was a lot that happened during that time that I learned a ton from it. So there's not a wrong path, there's just a different path. And I also like what you said about really leaning into these tumultuous situations and almost, Jen, I'm having a Janice Kring moment. I remember Janice Kring one time told me about this concept of like the 50,000 foot view. So instead of like participating in every situation, like feeling it and being so bogged down by it, like observe it. Look down, from 50,000 feet in the air, look down and see all the little ants running around. Like, what can you observe in this situation? What can you kind of take away and kind of, take yourself out of it for a second just to assess it. And it made me think of Lana Schlafer. She's a mindset coach. She's really far advanced in the spiritual mindset practice, and this concept of giving gratitude to these conflicts in your life. She calls it contrast to these negative moments. And so I remember a story. She talked about how she got in a little car accident. Someone like hit her from behind. She had a fender bender. And she was like, I've realized I'm so evolved in my practice. I was able to be thankful for the car accident because I met the person who hit me and they were amazing. We're we're great friends. And I was like, dang, I have work to do, because I would not be like, thank God for this car accident. Amen. Let me go see what this person is doing. I'd be like, the hell happened? So that was funny, but I mean, gosh, like, may that be our guiding light, right? To be like, okay, this happened to me, and obviously not be Pollyanna, like, oh, everything's perfect, but to be like, okay, why did this happen? And what can I take away from this?
Mm-hmm. We probably got about 5 new podcast topics. We could take two or three at least themes here and make 2 or 3 more podcasts on just those themes.
For sure. I think that one of the things that I really wanted to find out from you today is, for me, there's 6 areas of life that I feel like I'm always trying to balance, right? Mm-hmm. And so for me, it's family, like my immediate family in my house, relationships with friends and extended family, right? Mm-hmm. And then there's personal growth, fitness and nutrition, spirituality, and not necessarily career for me, but my business. Yeah. So for most, it would be career, which I guess it could still be classified that. So, and in all of that, balancing all of that, it's always been something that's been difficult, and I've had to strive to work for. Mm-hmm. What are some of the tips and tricks that you use to try to stay balanced, and what are your areas of life?
Well, I constantly go back to bringing in the white light energy and maintaining, a positive, almost like a positive energy bubble around myself. And I think one of the things I'm going through, and so I'm kind of like, if you would have talked to me a year and a half ago, I would have been telling you like I've got it all together. But now that you're talking to me in the middle of this transition, I'm also struggling to rebalance. Yeah. I'm going through that right now. Yeah. So honestly, I'm probably not the best candidate.
No, you are.
No, tell us what are the things that you're doing for that?
Everybody goes through it. I just like the cycle.
Yeah. What it is, it's a blessing too. So I have to look at it as a blessing. I'm so well known internationally. I have 5,000 contacts in my phone. They're all like CEOs and VPs, and I'm well known around the world. So I have so many people. If somebody has one lead and they're in South Africa, they're like calling me, and they're like, and I know them. And so it's like, how do you balance knowing 5, 10, 15,000 people that all view you because of my energy? They view me as a personal friend.
Yeah, the best friend.
It's kind of interesting to be in that. So I'm trying to figure out how to leverage that. That's another podcast.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll make a note.
That's
because it's interesting that I go inside and I feel I'm like, okay, how do I turn me being very well great friends with so many people around the world into something that I can handle and manage and do. So that's part of the transition that I'm going through as well.
I'd love to coach you through that.
You're going to coach me through that? Yeah, because it's important. It's important to recognize that I have a gift, and how do I turn that into a positive for me? Okay, so that I can survive it. Because right now I'm getting bombarded. I mean, I could literally never go to sleep, and I would not stop on emails or phone or outside of work. I mean, that's how. Because people just call me and they're like, they think that I have the answers to everything, even in business and personal.
Yeah, with huge with huge expectations like that,
I mean, I kind of feel like I should start a church or something and just be like, I mean, then I can tell you I can tell you all at one time, but that's not really, I don't feel like that's my vibe. So, I was talking to Lisa and Jen, talking to you, I'm actually wanting to do this podcast, and I feel like kind of talking about it is also therapeutic. And, and it kind of opens back up that I need to figure it out. I've kind of hiding from it for the little, I'm like, crap, I got to go through a change again. Here we go. I'm going to I got to peel my skin off and expose myself to the elements. And then I have to do something different, but I have to figure it out because I can't go, I've reached a breaking point. I can't go at this pace with this amount of workload. I can't keep going.
Right.
I'm at a.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I'm just saying, I don't know if you guys want to cut that out. It doesn't sound super positive for the podcast. You might have to edit that, but yeah, that's where I'm at. That's what I'm going through. It's been interesting.
We're all about real life on here.
It's real life, and that's what this is about. Because there's a lot of people out there that struggle with it, not at your scale, but they're struggling with it too. And it's important to get that out there that, there's other people that are struggling with it, and this is how I handle it. And then cross-pollinate ideas on how to get through it. That's the whole point.
Yeah, whatever situation you're going through at that time is the hardest thing you've ever gone through at that time. So even if you're a 25-year-old at a job and you're at a crossroads and you're like, should I stay in this job where I just feel valued or important, or should I try to take a leap of faith? If you're at the same crossroads that I'm at, it literally is no different. It doesn't matter the scale.
That's true.
Level. It is the same emotional feeling of maybe feeling a little trapped, feeling confused, worried, insecurity. Those are all the same common themes that whether you're 25, 30, 50, 80, or when I'm working at a grocery store, or you're working at corporate, or you have your own business.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah, because emotions are a universal language. So that makes sense. It makes
I would suggest raising the soul vibration, the aroma smells, some of the relaxation music, meditation. And I do bring in the white light energy is a big one for me. I will, if I'm feeling like I'm getting pulled in 10 different directions, I just stop and bring in the white light energy. And I just ask the source, my old soul and the source to just, give me a direction of what I should be doing right now. But that's kind of a Band-Aid too. You got to really figure it out for long term. You can't just do it like on the fly all the time. So
yeah. I think the first step is for everybody to realize that everybody's making the decisions that they make in the moment are with the best resources they had available to them or to us. We make our decisions given our current situation and everything we have available. And then if it didn't work out perfectly, which nothing ever does, then we learn and we just keep going. I think once we embrace that, it's easier, because when we assign that, oh man, I made that mistake, and then we put failure as a label to it, then we get the ending, and all of the guilt that comes with the ending is the baggage we take away. Working through it. And I think that is key. So I always say there's no such thing as failure. It's just feedback. And try to
and that's another podcast, Jen.
It really is.
It's another topic for sure. That's a whole series right there. As far as that, it's not failure.
Right.
Yeah. Failure. It's an opportunity.
Walk us through from the business side. We've talked a lot about bliss and how to maintain balance. What's your greatest accomplishment that made you feel really great about, man, I'm pretty cool. I did something pretty awesome.
When I was in a job working as a consultant. I was working for a company, but I was doing some automotive consultant stuff. And when I said one day, I was like, I'm going to start my own company. And when I did that, I thought that was pretty significant for somebody who, I didn't have a whole lot of money saved up, and, but I was single and didn't have kids. So it's a little bit harder, when you have the other stuff going on. So I had pretty much, I was like, if I'm going to do it, I got to do it now. I won't ever do it later. So I just took a leap of faith, and I worked a lot of other jobs too. So I don't want to act like, oh, I started my company and I just started making it. I had to work other jobs part-time, work on nights and weekends. I was the only employee for the first 5 years. And it was business development and consulting. So that's something you can kind of do on your own.
Yeah.
But then I was able to start hiring people. So I think that was one of the bigger accomplishments. And then when I started to get asked to, what I liked is being asked to speak, or when they wrote an article about me in like Automotive News, or, business journals, or site selection journals. I was asked to speak in different venues around the world about the automotive supply chain. That kind of makes you feel pretty significant.
Yeah.
That you're invited to speak somewhere in Europe.
That's awesome.
Or in Mexico or China or something like that. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. Plus I like to try to speak because I like to be a female role model,
mm-hmm.
to tell young girls, like, you can, like, I have my own business. I didn't have any money. I didn't have family money or anything like that. I really just started out on my own. And I did it. And if I did it, you can do it. And also a lot of young girls and even minorities are not really shown opportunities in the automotive industry. So that's another passion of mine that I think I've been able to influence because of my status, standing up in front of, 1,000 people and talking about women in the automotive industry and things like that.
Yeah, that takes a lot of courage because there's not very many of them out there. I started in the automotive industry when I was 19, so that was pretty funny.
Yeah, it's hard. It's a hard industry. Yeah.
I was there for 7 years, and that's where I learned the most lessons on leadership, the most.
Yeah. Were you on the West Coast or the East Coast?
I was on West Coast. It was in Arizona, and it wasn't like I was making cars by any means. I was making airbags. So, and we had to go, a lot of the time I had to go to Tennessee to visit Nissan. I had to go visit car manufacturing.
Was it Autoleave?
It was not Autoleave. It was TRW.
TRW. Okay. Yeah.
Autoleave was a big competitor though, but we did. I was working at TRW out there, and we did airbags and stuff. And it was a challenge because I was 19 and got promoted to a supervisor role of guys that were like 45, 50. And I was like you, trying to be bubbly, friendly, whatever. And they were like, scram, kid. What are you doing? So I learned a lot. Yeah.
You had to be more assertive and data driven. And then also you couldn't have emotions.
No.
Couldn't have any emotions.
No, not at all. It was like Tom Hanks. There's no crying in baseball. But I've never really been a crier though. So that didn't bother me. When I got mad, I would get mad. So I had like the temper part of like, are you kidding me? How are you going to disrespect me or something like that? But I wouldn't be the crier. So but the emotion still of showing anything I had on my sleeve. I had a mentor that told me, you have to go learn how to play poker because you got to work on your poker face and you got to make sure that you don't show your emotions. So, I mean, that developed into a really cool habit that I'm pretty good at now, but I love poker, but I'm saying, I learned not to leave that emotion right there anymore because that was the dynamic. Yeah.
Jean, what would you say? Oh, go ahead.
No. I was just saying that's an awesome story. And I can
What would you say for females right now who are in an industry or a work environment that they feel is male dominated and they don't feel that they can fully step into their power, or they don't feel that they're getting the respect? Like, when you think back through what helped you finally figure that out and finally navigate it, because now in that industry, I mean, people don't view you as male, female. They just view you as powerhouse, gene thrower. So what would you say got you over some of those hurdles?
Well, I mean, I think, honestly, it comes down to time. The action that, the proof is in the pudding, I guess. So, everybody, I could be exactly the same person right now and just put me back when I was 25 years old, but with the exact same knowledge I have now. And people would still say, okay, you're only 25, or you just turned 30. So it goes back to a little bit of, you have to do you have to pay your dues a little bit too. And I don't know, Jen, if you, I mean, at TRW, you still have to.
That is all I faced. All I ever faced was the age thing. And the age and the gender, like to me, the age was more of an issue for me. So I know that I always talk about women that are like, oh, girl power. And I'm saying, God, don't say that. Just be like, you power. Yeah. It doesn't matter if you're a girl, a boy, a monkey, whatever.
Yeah.
Power. But then I go right back to myself and I was like, damn it, I'm only 19, but I can still do this, this, and this, even though I know I want. So, I mean, it's the same thing. It's a mindset thing. For both
and I think, so I think, listen, you can be any age and be super smart, but whatever situation you're in, and even for young women, you still have to learn, pay your dues, listen to others, make observations. Don't come in there because you're a straight A student from Yale and think that you're going to nail it, because what you should really be doing is, hey, even if you think your boss is a total douchebag, he's going to be more willing to help you if you go up to him and say, hey, I want to learn. I want to be successful. Can you please show me, guide me, give me some ideas? Okay, even if you don't think he's super great, yeah, he's got there for somehow he's doing something in the business that's working. At least give that a chance. If that doesn't work, you have two choices. You figure out how to manage inclusion. You figure out how to maneuver through that culture, or you leave.
Yep.
Those are your choices.
I have interviewed over like 50 women that, hey, how did you do it? And that's one of the first things they said. My entrance strategy was I went in, I found out who's the biggest dog here, and I befriended them and asked them for feedback, advice, everything else, so that I became their protege, whether it was a man or a woman that I was asking.
Yeah, it didn't matter.
I did, and I did perfect. Then I became the subject matter expert, and I stayed in my lane, and I just marched, and I just did what I was supposed to do while managing everybody else. I didn't operate like I was in a vacuum, and I didn't do the whole, I'm going to try and prove myself thing. So those are like the three biggest things. And when I say prove myself thing, like prove that I'm good enough to be here, it was more of I'm going to prove what they needed to prove was I can do the job.
Right. Yeah. But you have to have allies. It's like Game of Thrones,
It really is.
You got to have allies. You have to know where the pieces are at on the chessboard. You got to know who's influenced by what, kingdom is influenced by what, and what are the motives. And, in the big scheme of things, it's a game for people in life too. It's kind of like competition, which is kind of fun. So if you look at it in the right way, it can be a positive. And even for the younger generation, that's something that, they should take into consideration is just listen and learn and observe, get mentor, and make it work for you.
That's cool.
Open for feedback.
Yeah.
So I have a question. So if you look back, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, what advice would you give yourself? So, you talked about that a little bit ago, even if you were back in time with what you know now, but when you think about people who are about to make this transition into running their own business and leaving corporate America, which there's a mass exodus of that happening right now, or people who are wanting to get ahead in their careers and kind of thrive in that environment, to get ahead and to catch up with where you are now, like what advice would you give people who are earlier on in their careers to be further along by the time that they reach our age in the future?
Yeah, and we kind of said it earlier. Honestly, the first step is whatever's going wrong in your life is nobody else's fault but your own.
Okay. Ownership and accountability.
It's ownership. You have to really...
So true.
You have to embrace that, even though it's painful and you might feel like, how can it be my fault? I'm working with crazy people. There's got to be something that you can do from a different approach, a different angle, befriend them in a different way, something that you can do. Or maybe you realize that you're in a bad situation and your job is to leave it and do the work to find something else to do.
Yeah.
To move. So, I think the first bottom line step is if I could go back and tell myself, because what I wanted to do is I wanted to blame and complain I wanted to complain. Oh, they're terrible. It's their fault. This work wasn't done on time and this, that, and the other. All that may be true, but what can I do to fix it, make it for me?
Yeah.
It's interesting. We were talking about giving gratitude to things earlier because we've got 3 former targeteers on the call right now. It's hilarious because I do think that the one big thing that, Target is great at was teaching us accountability. Sometimes not much, but
Target was life-changing for me. I will never speak ill of that company. I freaking love Target. I would sometimes say, shit, why did I ever leave? But if I hadn't, I wouldn't be where I am. But man, I loved it. I loved it there. I loved everybody. I love what they did.
I learned a lot when I was there too. So, I got to give them credit because I really learned about what's feedback. I didn't even know what feedback. I thought it was like, your radio had too much, vibration or something. I was like, feedback on the radio? What's that?
Yeah.
So, it's a great, fantastic company, and they do a great job with leadership and with, making people accountable and giving them like really the right tools.
Yeah. And it's like all 3 of us do have that theme, right?
Mm-hmm. So,
yeah.
So it works.
Yeah.
I didn't know accountability. What did you say, Jen?
I didn't even know that Jean was from Target or had any Target background.
She's the one who got me into Target. Yeah.
It's so funny because the whole time she was talking, I was like, man, she's like right in line with all of my values. And I got my values. I started Target when I was like 28, 27. Yeah. And that's right when I was coming into like who I was. And it changed me. Yeah.
Yeah. I stepped out of automotive for a minute and went to Target for I think 3 years, and I did the startup in the Huntsville.
Oh.
Huntsville Distribution Center. It was one of the very first ones outside of the original 5 distribution centers.
Oh yeah.
So it was
one of my buildings when I was a regional.
Okay. Yeah. So Huntsville I did the Greenfield launch with that facility.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but I originally started in Indianapolis, and I was only in Indianapolis for 7 or 8 months. And then I transferred because I needed a change.
Yeah.
And I was looking for a change. And then, and this is one of those painful situations I went through because I love Target and I was all about Target, but the plant went through a change with new leadership. And I was part of the old regime. You know how that, you get the old regime, and they had a new regime coming in, and I was part of the old camp. And so you could see where they were like, okay, you could tell they wanted to process me out. At the end of the day, it is what it is. And I wouldn't have moved back into automotive. Yeah. So it's like at the time I was 30 something, and I was mad. I was like, I'm mad. I gave them everything. But you look back and you're like, it was another sign of getting that tap on the shoulder, like it's time to move on.
Yeah. It's the universe talking to you. Yeah.
Yeah. And so now, even though at that time, maybe I didn't handle it, super maturely, but I got over it pretty quick. I was like, everything happens for a reason. And now I look back and just acknowledging that what a great experience, and I learned from it, and it was okay that I moved on. That gives you a positive vibe all the way up through to
your trajectory. Yep.
So going back and admitting, if I was sitting here today and said, I feel like I got a bad deal and this, now all of a sudden I've taken that negativity and I've been in it 15 years or 20 years. Yeah. It's not even worth it.
I think you just hit on one of the biggest things that I, if I could go back 15 years, and it would be, don't point the finger anywhere else. Because when you point the finger somewhere else, like you take away your own power. And that's something that I've been trying to tell everybody that I'm working with lately is don't blame, don't point, just turn it right back around. Don't take away your power. Yeah. Don't let people affect you that way, because it'll mess up your mind.
Yeah. I love that you guys are saying that. Tony Robbins, I'm slightly obsessed with him, so you guys will hear me talk about him a lot, but he has this concept of don't give away your happiness. Like, we give away our happiness too easily, right? Someone walks in the door and they're in a bad mood and we give away our happiness. Or, someone says something to us in the hallway at work and pisses us off, we give away our happiness. Or, your kids wake up at 4 a.m. and you're like tired and crabby and you give away your happiness. Like, don't give away your happiness so freely. I kind of think through like what would be, kind of like a summary of some of the things we're talking about. One of them is accountability and ownership, and getting yo shit right first. I feel like we go back to that too. Like I talked about that in the first podcast.
Yo shit.
Yo shit. Don't worry about everybody else. And then, secondly, don't give away your happiness so easily. Be more protective of your happiness.
Yeah.
So,
well, this was a really good first session. I mean, we're definitely going to want you back on the call.
Woo! Yes, girl.
Tell us about your transformation.
Yeah.
What transformation?
The one you're going through right now.
Yeah, and we'll come back in a couple weeks.
Oh yeah. We'll have to do. Yeah, I could be like a side series. We're like, okay, we're gonna talk to this again one more time.
It's a side series. That's funny.
It's a side series. We're like, ready? We got our new side series called "This Fucked Up Bitch." We're gonna come back and let us know if things have gotten any better or not.
Oh my God.
Funny.
Oh.
All right,
girls.
Well,
I think are we good to go? We're at an hour.
I think we're good.
We're gonna edit. We'll edit out. But hey, I wanted to just say and recap really quick. So some of the things that for the listeners out there that I heard you talk about is the white light, right? Connect with it. Connect with the light. Stay whole. Get whole if you're not. And mindset is everything. And then I also heard you talking about making sure that you're accountable. You own it. You don't put the blame on other people. Try to have a calming vibration and listen, right? And then you also said try to be the voice of reason whenever they're trying to implement something or navigate through something that's a little bit, I don't know, adversity heavy.
Yeah, it's definitely better than the opposite, which is being negative or being mean. So yeah.
Positive. Lisa, what do you want to recap real quick, Lisa? Anything else to say?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I was kind of getting to a little earlier. So, I mean, I think when I kind of think back on everything you talked about, I mean, it is all about ownership and accountability. If you're in an unhappy situation, ask yourself, what am I not giving? What could I be doing differently? Look at yourself. And we talked about a couple books out there for our readers. So the 4 Agreements is a great one that talks about, not taking things personally. So I think that's great. And this concept of not giving away your happiness, just decide, right? Just decide that I am going to protect my joy. I may not always be perfect at it. I may not always nail it. But if that's the compass, if your compass is navigate through this transition and find peace, go with the flow, right? So we talked about Abraham Hicks with that concept of going with the flow, going with the current versus upstream. If that's your compass, if that's what you wake up every day and focus on, you're going to get it right more often than not. So
you might want to, and I don't have anything else for this podcast, but I just thought about something that's kind of an issue in society right now, and I'm seeing it across the board, even in other countries. It's a global issue in business, and that's ego. So we need
an ego series
podcast about ego.
We should totally have an ego series.
It can destroy nations and corporations and very easily. Ego, and how to manage it, control it, how to change it.
Absolutely. And I think that the ego, number one root cause of why everybody that I've been interviewing, all 50 women, so there was 10 of them that left because of some rigid man who, once they challenged, became just after them, like a pit bull, and they had a target on their back. And that's the man's ego is what got in the way. And then the female's ego also got in the way. So it became this crazy game.
Power play.
Yeah.
All ego it's interesting. Wayne Dyer talks about ego stands for edging God out, EGO, edging God out. But it's really just fear, right? So it's fear of okay, I got feedback, now fear that I'm weak, or fear that they don't think I know everything, or fear that, somebody called me out on something, now they're judging me. I mean, it's fear. It's totally fear. We need to do
a podcast on that because I got all kinds of examples.
Fear.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Fear of fear.
I got a call right now, ladies. I gotta go.
Okay.
It's actually to talk